This is Political Thursday on Full Service Radio 830 WCRN. Now, here's your host, Jerry Doherty.
Tax the rich, feed the poor, don't around old rich no more.
All right, folks, good morning and welcome to Political Thursday. As you can tell, I'm not Jerry Doherty. And although I am in with Jerry Doherty on a regular basis, the vacationing Jerry Doherty is out and I will be solo this morning. So for the next hour, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And we will have the text line up and running. So 617-297-8388. This is where, as Jerry says, the intersection of your pocketbook and politics come together, and that's usually what we talk about. And Ted is flying the board. Are we set with our guests? Okay, so let me welcome into the conversation Bristol County Sheriff Tom Hodgkins. Hey, Tom, Sheriff, how are you, sir? We'll try that again. We're going to welcome Bristol County Sheriff Tom Hodgkins. Sheriff, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. And I thought we'd take a second to fill some listeners in who may not know who you are. I find that probably hard to believe in Massachusetts, but you've been sheriff in Bristol County since, the 90s?
Yeah, I've been blessed to serve the people of this county. I started my career in law enforcement down in Maryland as a police officer, and since then, when I came up here 10 years later, I began working for the Bristol County Sheriff's Office for the former sheriff, head of his internal affairs.
And weren't you on the city council in, I forget what town or city, you were on a city council, were you not for a while, the only Republican?
Yes, I was. I ran in 1988, I believe. I ran for at large. I served almost 3 full terms until I got appointed sheriff here.
What'd that feel like, Sheriff, being the unicorn on the board?
You know, I've always, of course, I was very outspoken, and that didn't always go well for the get along crowds. But, you know, I'm in the biggest Democrat enclave in Massachusetts, so. But I never worried about it because I always remembered that the people I'm speaking for, were the people that blindly trusted me to represent them. So it wasn't, you know, there were the sort of gang groups sometimes that would conspire to try to undermine what you were doing. If you took on an initiative and they hadn't thought of it, they would sometimes find ways to try to see if they could make it more.
Well, you got some notoriety, right, for charging inmates for haircuts and room and board and things like that.
Sure. Yeah, you know, when I took over as sheriff, one of the things I said that, number one, was jail wasn't going to be a country club. I think the great failure in this nation was that people were coming to prison and they were basically saying, as long as you're quiet, you can hang out, watch TV, play cards, lift weights, and do your time. And I felt that was the great failure because people were going to come in as bad, if not worse, when they left because they weren't focusing on programs. And I said, listen, we have to create a model inside the prison that's going to be model as best we can what life will be out on the outside. You can't tell your landlord that you want to buy a big screen TV so you're not paying your rent, right? And if you have money to buy candy, cookies, and upgraded sneakers inside the prison, why should the people who were victimized and the people who are making the right choices and having to already pay to operate these jails pay for food, pay for medical, pay for all these other things, why should they have to, you know, pay additional monies that they otherwise wouldn't have to pay?
I agree 100%. It's 100%. It's like the buddy who's so irresponsible with their money and always asking you for $50, $100 here and there. But you know, they just blow their money on, like you said, $200 sneakers and things like that. You know, I would always joke, but it's not that much of a joke, Sheriff, that in Worcester, where I lived for a lot of years, there's that certain element of the population in Worcester, and I'd say they used to winter in West Boylston, in summer in Worcester. And they would catch, you know, when it came to be October, November, they would do something that would catch them a 90-day sentence. And
That's right.
for the dead of the winter, they had a heat, a roof over their head, 3 meals, like you said, a weight room, TV,
Yeah.
whatever. It was a pretty good deal for them. And then as the weather got good, it was just time to get out.
Yeah, you're not supposed to like. You're not supposed to
You're
like
not
being
supposed
in
to
jail.
plan to go there. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, in this, when I took over, and I said, they had TVs in their cells. I said, wait a minute, they're lifting weights, watching TV, hanging out. They had one of the most beautiful gymnasiums with glass backboards, scoreboards, bleachers. I said, wait a minute, if we give these distractions to people who were never given guidance as young people, why would we ever believe that they would want to go to the programs like get their GED or get involved in substance abuse programming and things that they really needed if we're going to give them the alternative? And you know what? I took the TVs out of the cells. Everybody said I was Till of the Hun. I took the weights. I donated to the Boys and Girls Club and police departments. I got the bleachers, and I sent them over to Fairhaven Middle School because parents were sitting on the floor watching their kids play ball. And I took the scoreboards off and donated to the Boys and Girls Club and turned that gymnasium into a spiritual religious retreat center. And you know what? Today, we have one of the highest GED graduation rates in corrections across the state. And
Imagine that.
And people, defense attorneys tell us if somebody's facing a state prison sentence, which is more than 2.5 years, our maximum sentence is 2.5 years.
Yeah.
They say, if you plead to a lesser charge, we can get you into Bristol County rather than have to go to a state bid. And you know what some of these defense attorneys tell us? The people are saying, no way. I'd rather do more time than go to Bristol County. Right?
Wow.
Not because we're mean.
No.
But because
they have to actually do something.
Choices.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Choices. They're going to help them.
Yeah.
To get, and in the end, I would just say this, that my job, I've always believed, was while we had them in our custody, was to do everything we could to add tools to their toolbox they didn't have when they came in. So when they leave, they get on a trajectory that is a trajectory that doesn't bring them back. And they assimilate into society and don't keep victimizing people because now they can be successful, get away from drugs, and do the right thing.
To me, it seems common sense. Common sense. They come in,
Yes.
They're there for a reason. They're not there because they want to be. They've been ordered, they've been sentenced there. And to let them run let the inmates run the asylum type thing, it doesn't make any sense. But to have those programs and say, we're going to give you a good toolbox with life skills, and you're going to have to do these following things, it just makes so much sense to me. I don't understand how it doesn't to anyone else. And I've always said, there should be I call it just Life 101 class in high school that you should have to take before you're allowed to graduate. And that covers all the normal things like a checking account, savings account, how to buy insurance, how to balance the thing, how to buy a car, how does credit work. We send kids to graduate high school, and most of us, we find all that out trial and error, and maybe screw our credit up, and we're not, we don't get straightened out till we're in our 30s type of thing. But right. I digress. I got to ask you your feelings on the state of the nation today, when we have seen bail reform, which is a misnomer because it's just removing bail. And we see these liberal DAs that are electing not to prosecute or taking attempted murder charges and bringing them down to conspiracy charges. It's just, it's got to be very demoralizing for the police officers who, they've already been attacked for 3 years now with defund. They're evil and systemically racist. And that if you were to listen to certain organizations, every police officer wakes up in the morning and decide how many black people they're going to kill today.
Yeah, and it's interesting because black on black crime is far greater than anything to do with white on black crime. And I think everybody knows that now in this country. The statistics are overwhelmingly supportive of the fact that black on black crime is really the leading problem for the black community. But what I would say to you is that I have never been more upset and frustrated with what elected officials have done in this country, and this woke movement, George Soros and the rest of them, to try to get not only DAs in there that are going to let people back out into our communities that they otherwise were supposed to, prosecute and keep in jail so they didn't go victimize people again. They basically have, what's happened is they have turned this narrative from the bad guys are really the victims.
2 minutes.
And the victims are non-existent. They don't exist.
Right.
And this is the problem. And so what it's doing to law enforcement is you have officers that are pausing now because every single thing they do, they're scrutinized. People are putting phones up as though they're bad guys.
Right.
And we're having a hard time recruiting people into corrections, into law enforcement, because they're saying, why would I get into a job, number one, where I'm going to leave my house, my family, risk my life every day to keep my community safe? And if I try to intercede and they come up with these wild lawsuits and all these things to just harass me and my family, well, I don't need that. We're people that have got 15 years in are saying, I'm not taking a chance on losing my pension. So it's really outrageous that this has been done to the people that we've all sworn to protect. And I think I've been working with sheriffs across this nation. I've got over 300 sheriffs that are really mobilized, and we're saying, in fact, I don't know if you know this. I don't know that if you know this, but there's a movement across the country right now to try to get sheriffs appointed, not elected, and take away the people's right to decide and choose people that they want to keep them safe, that'll uphold their oath, unlike Biden and the rest of them in Washington. We're not going to turn our backs on the people. We want people to join with us, and we won't, when they come after us, we're not going to turn around and go the other way. We're going to do what we promised them we would do, uphold the law and the Constitution.
Well, we just saw that
30.
little thing out there with the sheriff of LA County when they tried to say he went along with that reduced sentence for the felony kid who ran down the mother and the baby. Sheriff, we got to take a break. Can you hold over?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So, folks, we're talking with High Sheriff Thomas Hodgson, and he's Bristol County. He's been there for a long time, but gained a lot of attention nationwide because of his policies.
Here we go.
And of course, what we did with the Trump administration. So we'll continue the conversation with the High Sheriff on the other side. Stick with us.
Say hello to your guest.
There you go. Hey, Sheriff. Sorry I didn't get a chance to chat before we went on the air.
No problem.
I would like to wrap that up, but then obviously I'd like to talk. I mean, the big conversation we're having today is school shootings and the reaction that the left's always going to have to it. And, look, I look at this, the left is a one issue. It's a broken record. It's a variable of one, the gun. That's it.
Right.
They're not taking mental health into. They're not even the president responded to a question about hardening schools, school security. No, not interested in that. We've got this going on, and it is a very complex issue with multiple tier answer to it, and just attacking the guns again isn't the answer. It never is, never has been.
No, I mean, look at Chicago.
This is the thing I say, and I noticed last Monday, right? I've said forever, look, at every weekend, there's technically mass shootings in the major cities. Mass shooting is 4 people or more, and that happens in Detroit, Chicago, LA, New York, almost every weekend. And we don't hear about the mass shootings because it's black on black crime. It's the inner city. And the same people who want to toughen these gun laws won't prosecute the gun violations in the inner city.
That's exactly right. And if you don't have accountability, and look, we just had a case. It just happened these last 3 days.
1 minute.
In Dighton, where this kid came, and this is the 4th time this kid has done it. He did it last year. He put a note on the wall. So there's a gun in the school. We sent they called us for our firearms detection dog, and he detected, hit on the bag, and then of course, and then yesterday, another situation, they get word gets in that there's ammunition in the building. It's the same guy. It's the same junior in high school guy that did this the day before, and he had done
30.
it the year before.
Talk about your red flag.
Exactly, and he's his junior. What was he going to do in his senior year? Was that going to be his last hurrah? And nobody did anything. I mean, this is the problem. When I heard that, my people have responded every day. We're going to be there.
10 seconds.
All right,
Okay, here we go.
We're going back on, Sheriff.
No problem.
Offer cannot be combined with Ford Service credit card rebate or offer. See your participating Ford dealer for details through 12/31/17.
Now, Political Thursday continues on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN. Once again,
the rich, feed the poor, don't around old rich no more.
All right, folks, and welcome back to the second segment of Political Thursday here on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Jerry Doherty's vacationing. You can also follow us on the TuneIn app. If you don't have it, download it. Seconds to do that. Punch in WCRN. You can take us anywhere. Do me a favor and hit that like button so that we know that you're there, and very easy to find out. I also happen to be streaming today's show on my social media platforms at Joe Mangi, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube page, and even Twitch TV. We're talking with High Sheriff Thomas M. Hodgson, who is Bristol County Sheriff. And as we were talking, Sheriff, before the break, this legal system in the last couple of years with the bail reform, in this election with certain groups funding it, and most of it be George Soros money, with the idea of let's get after the DAs, and we'll get DAs in there that are like-minded and very liberal and leftist, and they are electing not to prosecute. They're reducing sentences. They're letting people out early. Horrific crimes are being treated like misdemeanors. And I think that they have overstepped a lot. In other words, you are elected for a job, and your job is to enforce the law and prosecute the law. You're not a sovereign. You don't get to make up new laws and decide to change them. Or am I thinking of this wrong?
No, you're thinking of it exactly right, but it gets even worse than that. I mean, you have these elected officials who are completely ignoring it. Look at the current U.S. attorney here in Massachusetts. I mean, she has a whole category when she was the district attorney of things she refused. She would, if you stole something $250 or less, she would prosecute you. Yeah. I mean, what does that say to the hardworking businesses and families who work to build their businesses? That, you know what, we're not going to worry about what it does to you, which you work hard for, and whether or not you're victimized. We're worried about these people that we think are stealing because they really need something. And if you suggest that, as they have, it does exactly what's happening in this country right now. People don't worry about it. They're not even running out of Walmart anymore. They're going in with a shopping cart, filling it up, and walking out. Yeah, and over again. Because they know that nobody's going to do anything. And to me, I can't think of anything more egregious. Look at what's going on in Washington. I've been dealing with immigration reform for 25 years. Yeah. These people in Congress, and currently this administration particularly, they have been basically saying to the angel moms and dads who lost their kids to the criminally illegal aliens they knew were coming in, you know what? Your kid that died 5 years ago didn't matter, and neither did the 5 or 6 tomorrow, because you know why? My politics are more important. And what's really the most egregious thing that everybody in America ought to be really fuming about is they're basically saying, we're going to ignore the existing law. If you don't like it, change it. We get that. There's a process. But they won't, and they haven't for 25 years. I've been immersed in it for that long. They are basically saying, we'll pick and choose who has to follow the law and who doesn't. When you do that, and you undermine the legal system and the criminal justice system in this nation, you basically began to erode and take away the foundation that protects our republic and all our values and freedoms that come along with it. And therein lies the fundamental problem that all of us have to come together now. And we have to say, this is our time in history. Every one of us, I don't care what role we have, our kids and our grandkids are going to ask of us, what did my mom and my dad, what did my grandfather and my grandfather do when America was spiraling downward? Did they do what their parents and grandparents did when America was facing real challenging times, different but challenging, the Depression, World War I, World War II? Did they stand up like they did, or did they say to us, you know what, it's your problem, we're going to pass on a less safe, less prosperous America, and you figure it out? Yeah. And I don't think any of us want that. We need to come together now, and we need, as communities and as this nation, the people, to take back government and say, you work for us, we pay your salary, we pay for the seat you sit in this building, and we pay for the building and your staff. Either do what you went there to do when you took your oath and support what matters to me and my family, or we're getting you out. And that's what we need to do.
Well, I think that most people with a functioning IQ and some common sense sees that there is this duality in the justice system, and that not all are treated equal. And that's very sad and dangerous for the country, because that's why she wears a blindfold. And we see that happen, and that is very demoralizing to the citizenry. And I think that I don't know if you caught Matthew McConaughey at the White House the other day. Besides what he had to say, contradicting himself from 2019, by the way, one thing he did say that I thought was interesting, and I agree with, he talked about the veil over the masses, in that we need to lift that, and the fact that we are closer together and closer on the same page in the masses than we are told we are. That the extreme left and right are trying to tell us that we are this systemically racist, divided country, and that if we lift the veil, we'll find out that most of us are in the center and that we agree on more than we disagree with. And I think that was a very important observation.
And it absolutely was. I did hear that. And what came to my mind was that the reason that we're here at this point is because Washington, on both sides of the aisle, the people who are supposed to be leading this nation are constantly divided. They're fighting over each other's political welfare and not over the people's welfare. And consequently, what's happening is the press are playing into it. So we never get to talk about the core issue because it stays up at the surface about this one did this, let's have an investigation about that. Let's do this. Yeah. So you never get down to the issue. And what happens is the public either gets tired of it, tunes it out, and then these guys get exactly what they want, which is to run things their way around their politics, not around the public policies and the things that should be worked on and are going to benefit us.
Well, Sheriff, we're going to have that dog and pony show tonight for the January 6th thing, which is just, I mean, they brought in Goldstone here to, he's the guy who killed the Epstein story and the Clintons, and they're just making this a production. I mean, they mocked Donald Trump for having a reality show. This is a reality show. I mean, this is going to be ridiculous. And I think they're going to be very disappointed in the ratings. I think they think this is what's on everybody's mind. I got to tell you, gas prices, the food prices, feeding your family, getting to and from work, probably sacrificing a family vacation or having to give up certain, the cable package or something like that. That's what real families are facing in dealing with. And that's the focus.
And therein lies our commonality that you just spoke of a moment ago, that there is a commonality of what matters to us. And we can't allow these politicians to have their political agendas dominate the landscape and dominate the discussions and the narratives. We have to insist that no, prices, we're not, some of my officers tell me they can't get the formula for their kids. And we're giving formula to people that this government's letting come in over the border and giving it to them for free. All these things are complete contradictions to what the responsibilities are. So your point is very well taken, and I think that we have to recognize that those very things that you just spoke of are at the core of what matters to us and our families, whether you're a Democrat, Independent, or Republican. Let's get together. We're supposed to be the United States of America, but for these people in Washington and the current administration, we would be. But they want us to be divided. They don't want us to be able to be together, and they'll continue these superfluous back and forth political arguments to distract us away from it. I was doing some radio shows, and I was talking about I never thought I'd be living the script of The Wizard of Oz. Where you look at the cast of characters, and we have them in Washington, and the guy behind the curtain who's saying, pay no attention to what's going on here. And that's their game. Yeah. And we got to stop letting them use us for their game.
Sheriff, I've got to ask you because obviously it's a big topic for the country, and that is the school shootings and mass shootings that are taking place. And, I've said on this show over and over again that we have technically mass shootings every weekend because a mass shooting is 4 people shot or more. And this happens in Detroit, in Chicago, LA, New York, every weekend. And up until this past Monday was the first time I woke up to news talking about 13 mass shootings. And I'm like, okay, what changed? What flipped? Because that happened every weekend. And the legacy media said nothing about it on Monday. Now, all of a sudden, it's out there. And then we've got the specific issue of school shootings. And we have the president who foo-fooed away any discussion about hardening the target and securing the schools. And we secure so many other things so much better, including sporting events, than we do schools where our children are. And the discussion now is
2 minutes.
what to do here. And I just want to know what your take is on what's the solution to school shootings?
Well, first of all,
no pressure there, Sheriff.
No.
Quick answer.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
But you just pointed out again the political football. There's a new political football for the moment. But anyway, that's shameful. But what we need to do is we need first and foremost to take a look at the mental health, deal with the red flags that are going on that are very obvious in front of the eyes of teachers and parents. We need to get involved. If a kid is being bullied, you got to make sure you have conversations with kids at home. Make sure just how was your day, and then when they get to school, if teachers are seeing things being acted out, they have to be empowered and be able by the administrations to be able to deal with it. Some places they won't let the school resources officers get involved with any of the kids unless something happens, and that's a huge problem. We're bringing in therapy dogs into the schools, and we've seen kids that a kid was breaking down, having a panic. Not a panic attack, but an anxiety attack. And our dog went right over, and that kid transformed in a matter of about a minute. So, we need to harden the targets at the schools. We need to have sound legislation, drill down, talk to teachers, talk to the people, say, what exactly is happening? How are and do the profiles. I know they've done it before, but let's look at it. You can't just blame the gun.
30 seconds.
I saw a thing on Facebook that had a gun standing against the wall, and it said, I've been doing a surveillance on this gun. Don't worry, it hasn't moved yet, right? Meaning that it's not the gun.
No.
It's the person that's going to grab that thing.
Jeff,
so,
go ahead.
No, I'm just saying we need to get serious about this, drill down, and do the right things and look at it for what it is, not play politics every time something happens and say it's the guns.
Right. Sheriff, we have to take a quick break. Can you hold over or do you have to run?
Sure.
All right, great. Hold on. We're talking with High Sheriff Thomas Hodgins from Bristol County, folks. 508-871-7000. We'll take your calls and questions. 508-871-7000. Stick with us.
You're out.
There we go. So when we come back, just kind of finish up on the school thing. And one of the things I'm going to bring up, and I don't know if you had caught this, but Paxton, right, the Texas AG, he said the other day that illegal immigration, the migrants crossing in Texas, is costing the taxpayers of Texas $850 million a year. Mm-hmm. That's a hell of a price tag, right? And we're talking about
burger and blizzard meal matchup. Today's matchup is Bryce Harper's new DQ meal with.
And we're talking about Uvalde, which is 70, 80 miles from the biggest city. And they said, well, they recognized the problems and they wanted to build a mental health facility. Mm-hmm. And they had it planned out and so forth, but then it was a $20 million, building. And they couldn't do it. So they couldn't do it because the money wasn't there. And I'm saying, well, 20 versus $850 million, that's why you don't have it. If the taxpayers, if the illegal immigration is usurping $850 million out of the pool here, folks, right? At that point, you could build 20, 30 of these facilities all over the state. And this is just the inequity that people see. And I think when times are good, and when under the Trump years,
1 minute,
employment was very low, wages and the blue collar wages were going up. There was more tolerance for immigration, but since the Biden administration's taken over, the floodgates been open, and they stand up there and they lie to our face and said the border's closed.
And they're also building buildings to put illegal aliens in because they're coming in such droves, but they can't take care of the safety and security of our children and the communities. I mean, this is what's outrageous about all this. Plenty of money. I mean, how much does it cost per flight that they're shipping these people all over the neighborhoods?
That's it. And we're acting like the world's ATM machine, another $1.9 billion to South American companies to make them more like American companies, because Kamala Harris thinks that means they won't come to the United States if that happens. That money's never getting past the front door, by the way.
Right. Exactly.
All right. We're coming back in a couple of seconds.
All right, here we go.
You're listening to Political Thursday on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN. Once again,
the rich, feed the poor, don't around old, rich no more.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of this week's Political Thursday. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Jerry Doherty out vacationing. You can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. We're streaming on TuneIn as well as on my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and even Twitch TV. Why? I don't know. But we're there under Joe M. Show. On the line with us is High Sheriff Thomas M. Hutchins, who is the sheriff of Bristol County, and gained some notoriety for his unique way of running the county jail and saying, hey, you're going to pay for these things. If you have money to pay for those sneakers and these TVs and so forth, you can pay to help pay your way here. You instituted some fantastic programs. I wasn't even aware up until you told me earlier about donating the gym stuff and the bleachers and the scoreboards and stuff, and I think that's excellent. And of course, you got some notoriety in the Trump years, and I think that had a lot, if I'm not mistaken, with your outspokenness on illegal immigration, because you do not have to abut Mexico to be a border state today, because we have an administration who are literally shipping the illegals all over the country, busing them, flying them. They lied to us about flights in the middle of the night. If you remember Jen Psaki trying to spin like Peter Doocy was asking her a stupid question, and 3 o'clock in the morning. That's not really the middle of the night, So we know we're spending a fortune on building buildings and basically acting as a travel agent for illegal immigrants. But I wanted to finish up the school shooting thing first, Sheriff. And you said when you started to answer the mental health issue, and I think that is the biggest component of the problem that we have here. And when people talk about red flags, and the red flag laws concern me a little bit, because how are those going to work? Is your constitutional right going to be trampled on, or do they need to go to a judge just like they need to get a warrant and get a warrant to go seize your weapons, or can they do it because a pissed off ex calls up and drops a dime on you for revenge? We've seen other laws weaponized, correct? I mean, what's the old adage in the law? The law is to be meant used as a shield, not a sword. And we got to be careful of that. So mental health is a huge part of this. Agreed?
Yes, it is. It is, and the mental health problem is complex. It can develop out of bullying issues. It can develop out of a broken home where there's no father or parents that don't really spend time with the children. It can be a whole host of things, or just societal pressures overall, right, that are impacting people. So that really is sort of the fundamental undercurrent of a lot of these things. Most people don't feel like they want to walk in and just start shooting people, right? I mean, when we were kids growing up, we used to play with play guns, but we didn't carry out these behaviors. The anger wasn't behind it; it was fun. It wasn't right. It wasn't meant to hurt people. So
we were mimicking the old spaghetti westerns that we would see.
Exactly.
And if you didn't have a stick, and we could usually find a stick that looked enough like a gun, that right, our imagination went from there. Hey, and if you couldn't find a stick, Sheriff, you used your finger and your thumb.
Right.
And you made the little shooting sound, and you had a ball playing.
But the thing I would say, Joe, is that these politicians are always looking for the quick answers because they want to get political gain. It's too difficult for them and too long for them to get some political quick hit or benefit based on their party philosophies if they really drilled into something like mental health, right? Because it's complex. You have to drill into it and so forth. So let's take the easy answer that makes it look like we're really doing something. But we've watched this happen. Look after Columbine. And then you wait till the next thing happens, and then you decide you want to immerse yourself in it again. Yeah. This is the problem. So
politicians work in a cycle, right? They work in a 2-year or 6-year. That's it. Like that's their world. If they can't, handle it in this term and have something to hang their hat on for the re-election campaign, then it's not. That long-term investment in mental health, Sheriff, it's a long-term investment, is it not?
Yes, it is. And if you look at the number of the problems that have existed, immigration, drill into it. It's real simple. Put the wall up and stop with this. I mean, I've been to the processing centers now. I've been out of the border 5 times. I've talked to ranchers. I've watched these people coming across. I've been up in aerial surveillances. And I don't know if you know this, Joe, but many of your listeners may not. Massachusetts has had the highest influx of illegal aliens than any other state between 2007 and 2017. And most people, and you said it earlier, it's no longer a border issue.
Yeah.
Every state in the United States is a border state. So in March, 230,000 people came in just 1 month. That is the equivalent of Fall River and New Bedford, Massachusetts, population combined.
Yeah.
So my question to everybody is, and I hope people will really think about this, where are there 2 cities that you know of anywhere in America that are sitting vacant with vacant homes, grocery stores, hospitals, emergency medical staff, police, jobs, banks, all these things that normally would be, where are they that these people, these 230,000 people are going to just move into? There aren't any. So the question is, where are they going and who's paying for them?
Absolutely. I've talked about this over and over again, Sheriff, that when a community grows organically, you see this influx of kindergartners. Well, the city council, town council, they have 12, 13 years to realize we got to have a bigger high school. But if you start dropping 2,000-3,000 people into a small town or even a middle-sized city, it's taxing your housing. It's taxing your transportation. It's even taxing your sewage and garbage and waste disposal. It affects everything because you've shocked the system.
And it's killing your children. The number one killer of 18 to 42-year-olds is fentanyl, and that's pouring in. And Washington knows it. Biden knows it, and he's known it for a long time. But it's so bad. And if you think about this, it's coming from China.
Yeah, but we have a president who's compromised by China, and that's just the bottom line on that.
But you know what? That isn't okay to have some Mrs. Jones or my neighbor walk into their kid's room to wake them up to go to school or work and shaking them, and they're not waking up because these people in Washington don't want to protect them, and they know death after death.
No, Sheriff, I don't know how often or if you ever even listen to my show, but this is one of my things I have when it comes to this is I refuse to refer to these fentanyls as overdoses. They are not overdoses. When these kids are buying what they think is one drug and it's laced with fentanyl, that is poisoning. That's murder. If I was to go into if you were a diabetic and I went in your home and I switched out your insulin with the poison in there or put fentanyl in there, you took your insulin thinking it's insulin and you die, that's murder. Absolute murder. So I refuse to refer to these as overdoses. They are
essentially creating counterfeit pills, right?
Yep.
And the other thing that's really important, Joe, that people probably may or may not know, the listeners, but the cartels, sex trafficking and human trafficking in this country right now are out of control. Young kids are being drawn into sex trafficking, human trafficking. It is more lucrative than the drug trade for the cartels. Who would have ever thought that?
Yep.
And you can only accomplish that by having people enabling in Washington and encouraging this to go on in our neighborhoods and across the nation.
Well, doesn't the bands, right? These people, and a lot of them kids or adolescent age, coming over with bands on them, right? They've found the cut bands. Yeah. And, we're the Border Patrol is trying to figure out, okay, what does this mean? And then now the theory here is, certain color bands mean it's okay to get caught, not to get caught. You're going to work for the gang, or you're going in to the sex trafficking industry, right? And that's where you're targeted for. And Donald Trump and the Trump administration addressed this issue, but anything Trump got ignored or shut down or mocked. And he was livid about this aspect of it. And it couldn't get the traction because we've seen that over and over again. You got a chance to go to the White House several times, right? And work with the president. Yeah. And have you ever talked to him at any point about that aspect of the illegals coming over, the sex trafficking and human trafficking going on?
Oh, absolutely. In a number of meetings we had, myself and some of the sheriffs, I brought sheriffs from all over the country there on a number of occasions. But during our conversations, one of the things that I think was the hallmark of President Trump that I think people have now seen is he brought the people who had their boots on the ground in the community. Whether it was a medical issue, he'd bring doctors in, or whether it was the law enforcement piece, he would bring sheriffs in and other law enforcement people and have meetings. Because when he created policy, he wasn't going to do like past presidents and politicians would do. Oh, this is a good answer, but we have to water it down and kind of filter it through so these people this group gets political benefit away. He didn't care. He didn't care if you were Republican or Democrat. He wanted to make sure that he understood the issue so that when he created a policy, it was going to go back and benefit the people that we said we were going to protect and take care of in our communities. And he was as true as he could be about that. And he created policies and never forgot it was America first. And the people I represent were the same ones that he represented. And he knew that the connection to the communities was through the people who had the boots on the ground that he could talk to about creating better policies to protect people.
1 minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look at this baby formula situation. I don't think it ever would have got to the point that it has gotten to if he was still in the White House. And if for some reason it did, I think you would have seen all the baby manufacturer CEOs, including Abbott, because Biden did have a meeting and they left out the company that's responsible for 40% of the baby formula production in this country wasn't in the meeting. And when they have when they had a meeting about electric cars, Elon Musk is left out. I mean, the guy, the pioneer behind electric cars.
And President Trump, look, you're absolutely right. And President Trump, you know, he's a businessman. He's a bottom line guy. And when he would meet, that's what it was about. He wanted to get the bottom line, and he was phenomenal at doing it. Yeah. And we've got to find a way to get back to getting the people's agenda on the front burner.
Absolutely. Can you hold again, Sheriff, and get through this break? All right. We're talking with High Sheriff Thomas M. Hodgins, Bristol County. You can join the conversation, 508-871-7000, folks. Stick with us. Back on the other side. All right. Sheriff, do you have... Oh, we got a phone call? Okay. Let me see.
Love phone calls.
Two. Mark was first.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sheriff, we're not taking calls?
Oh, no, I love taking calls.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. Yeah, we got two calls. Okay. I didn't see those till now. So we'll come back. I'll do the lead in again, set you up in that, and then we'll jump the phones to get them out of the way. And cool. And then we'll this. Do you want me to ask you anything to talk about elections at all? Do you have some comments there, or is that something you don't?
As far as
did you feel about the integrity of the elections, the Congress's attempt to federalize them and take them out of the states, which of course is directly in the Constitution?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, okay. Whatever you want to talk about.
All right, that's cool. All right, so we have two calls. The first we'll go to is Mark. Who's been on longest, Ted? Mark. Okay, we'll go to Mark first. Mark is an elderly gentleman retired in Worcester, I believe, and I think he just absorbs news all day. He sees
how good
everything, right? He reads the papers, he watches the news. He'll call up and he gets to see more news than I do. I've got a company or two to run.
Yeah, of course.
This guy is so well versed in what's going on in the news that sometimes he'll bring up something I haven't seen yet. You know.
Yes.
So he's always
that's awesome.
Bring something to the table. And the other guy is a normal caller too, Ken, and he's also very well versed with the virus, with the corona situation. He does a lot of research on that, and he really knows a lot.
Is he from Easton? Is he from the Easton area?
No, Ken is, I think, Holden, Worcester area.
30 seconds.
Yeah, we're coming back.
Yeah, no problem.
I don't got anything in my ears.
Radio. Join us at the corner of fresh and familiar. North Star Music. New England hits that made radio great. Evenings at 7 on Full Service Radio, WCRN.
Now, Political Thursday continues on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN. Once again, here's your host, Jerry Doherty.
Tax the rich, feed the poor, don't around old, rich no more.
And welcome back to the fourth and final segment of this week's edition of Political Thursday. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Jerry Doherty is vacationing. Our guest online is High Sheriff Thomas M. Hutchins from Bristol County, who gained a great deal of notoriety for his handling of the jail. Jail is the county level. Prison is the state. Jails are counties. So if you have a 2.5 year or less, you're going to end up in county. Over that, you go, as they say, upstate sheriff, right? And you got a prison sentence. And he worked with the Trump administration on immigration and all the issues and problems that surround that. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Sheriff, let's jump to the phones because we have a couple people who've been waiting patiently. Let's go to Mark first in Worcester. Mark, good morning, and you're on with the sheriff and myself. What's on your mind?
Good morning, Sheriff. How are you today?
I'm great, Mark. How are you?
Fine. You heard the latest breaking news that the husband of the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, Paul Pelosi, all charges have been dropped. I guess he wasn't blowing numbers, just bubbles.
Well, yeah, and I haven't seen it yet. I'd be interested to understand what the rationale was to treat him differently than everyone else.
I'll get on to the next thing, and I'll get off the air. As far as this idiocy of issuing license from the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles to illegal alien foreign nationals, this idiocy, it's going to the Senate today, from what I understand. It's already passed the House. It's going to the Mass Senate today. So anybody who's interested, they can call massfiscal.org, and apparently they give you the name of who your state senator is. They also give you their email, and you can fire off an email to your state senator saying that you're not in favor of giving licenses to illegal alien foreign nationals. Massfiscal.org, they'll walk you through it, and you can fire off an email to your state senator.
Yeah. And Mark, I would encourage everybody to do exactly what you just said. If you follow what they've been doing all along, they've been trying to get driver's license for illegals for a very long time here in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And they've been using these phony arguments about somehow it's going to make the road safer. Police are going to have better relations with them. And if you notice, they kept changing what it was. Now they call it the Family to Work Act to try to
away.
But here's the thing that all the listeners and everyone needs to know why this is so important for them to do exactly what you just said. That number one, these members of the legislature.
Have a good one, Sheriff. All right.
Thank you, Mark.
Took an oath to uphold the rule of law and protect the citizens of our communities. Number one. Number two, by doing this, they have taken away another tool from law enforcement, because before, if somebody was driving without a license, it gave us cause to look deeper into them. Let's not forget that the 19 hijackers on 9/11 had 30 different IDs on them. 30. And they get these birth certificates out of Puerto Rico that look real, and it's a common thing. We know about it in law enforcement, but the registry can't verify these things. They look real. And what's happening is we're giving terrorists, never mind the drug dealers and everybody else, another free pass and a way not to get detected, much like sanctuary cities, so they can freely move around and create havoc, crime, and victimize people, because we have a legislature that's more interested in their politics than they are in the safety and security of the people of this country. And it's outrageous that they're doing this.
I agree. We had a state senator on earlier in the week, and we talked about this issue. It doesn't pass the common sense test. This is someone who illegally entered the country. They broke a law. I've always maintained that, people try to play that down, Sheriff, but I'm like, once you enter the country illegally, you have to continue to break the law to survive here. meaning you have to either lease an ID from somebody from Puerto Rico. That tends to be kind of the common, path, right? They borrow a Puerto Rican, exactly, or they've got to commit identity theft. And if I did it or you did it, if we committed identity theft, we'd be in big trouble. And then they're going to lie about everything else. I mean, they're constantly, shuffling paper and changing their name, driving without licenses. And so I'm saying you reward them by giving them something that we're told over and over again is not a right. It's a privilege to get a driver's license.
And that legitimacy to that license, quote unquote, is basically giving them options to do more things to create financial fraud and all these other things to victimize people, never mind undermining law enforcement's ability to have another tool to identify these people quickly so that they don't carry out another 9/11 or they don't victimize someone or push drugs on young kids and communities. That's gone now if they pass this.
Yeah. And the other part of this, and I'm like, well, where was this in the debate? They receive the old license. We're not talking they don't get the new Real ID one, but the license they get, you can't tell the difference. In other words, it's not printed vertically. There's no stripe on it. So the officer pulling them over has no idea that this person is an illegal alien. They can't tell by the license, which I think if you're going to do it, and I don't think we should, but if you do, the license should have some kind of denotation so that the officer pulls them over and they understand that they're not a citizen, that they're illegally here and they're driving on this special license, but they can't tell because they get the exact same license as a citizen would get.
Yeah, and keep in mind, too, the contradiction, which is a more fundamental thing about what about the 5 million people around the world who are waiting behind their borders, respecting the laws of the United States, going to pay their way, and have done it the right, are going to do it the right way, and have done it the right way? What are you saying to them, right? They had to go through all the steps that an American citizen had to go through to get their licenses and to qualify for it. But now you're going to say, well, because we want this group of people to come in and be able to just infiltrate your neighborhoods, they need to get around and get jobs and all this other stuff. It's and that's what they use. They try to say, well, they need to get to work and they need to get their family. Yeah. Well, you know what? So did the people that are waiting their turn, but they're waiting their turn.
And they can't, in politicians in D.C., basically on the left, can't understand why the South American immigrants who have come to the state did it the right way, why they're so much for the wall and so much for enforcing the laws. They don't get that. They think just because they happen to be Latino, that they should be totally fine with the open border. And it's like, no, because they went through the time, money, and effort to come here legally, and you're insulting them. You're slapping them in the face by letting people who just come over the border basically end up with the same life they did. And they went through it the right way to do it.
Yeah, and on top of that, there's another piece to it too, which is many of them came from places where the law didn't protect them in their countries, and they wanted to come to America because they saw that their freedoms would be protected by the underpinnings and the framework of the laws we have. And now they're seeing those things dissipate. Exactly. It's scaring them that they were starting to go to where they were in the countries they left.
And we're the last shining city on the hill, right? Like, where do you, if exactly America right. goes, where do you go from there? 508-871-7000. We're speaking with High Sheriff Thomas Hodgkins from Bristol County. Let's go to Ken, who's been waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, you're on with the sheriff and myself.
Morning, Joe and Sheriff.
Hi,
we talk about these big issues, and we expect politicians to address them. And I think it's largely a lost cause. So when I look at the Uvalde shooting, that has now become a future mission of my life, to protect my closest school near me. I'm going to be living within literally a quarter mile of a school, and I want to do everything I can to protect it. I don't own a firearm, but I want to make sure that they only have one entry. I want to also assist on the mental case issue, because there are lost souls out there that are the ones that are the perpetrators. And we need to create networks locally to solve these problems with local police, to make it far safer, and so that if someone bad knocks at our school, we're prepared. And I will be walking distance I get there and do whatever I can to assist in evacuation or anything like that. Your thoughts?
Well, Ken, as you're saying this, and first of all, thank you for that. God bless you for for stepping in. You remind me of the Patriots back when, who said, we have to do something. We have to. This is our community. This is our country. And when I see what the parents are doing in Virginia now, and I think most of us have seen that now on national television, who are stepping up and saying, enough's enough. You are not going to do this to our children. You're not going to dictate and have them doing these woke education things, whatever it is.
1 minute.
They're stepping up, and they're doing what all of us have to do in America right now. And you're a leader in that regard. And I just want to say thank you for that, because that's what we need to do. You're right. The politicians aren't going to, unless you had a mass group of people that are going to say, we're getting you out. That's the only thing they'll react to is votes. But in the meantime, we can't wait for those things. People like you are real leaders and real patriots that can get others to rally around them. And that's how we got what we did in the way of our values and virtues.
30 seconds.
Yeah. Ken, now we're against the clock. You got any final thought you'd like to share with the sheriff? Yeah, I think Ken's gone. All right, Sheriff, we're running up against the clock. I want to thank you for taking time out and joining us today. And I probably kept you longer than you thought, but it flew by.
10 seconds.
And it was great information. And where can people follow you or check you out?
They can go to www.sherifftomhodgson.com, and they can learn all about the kinds of things we're doing. And if I may say real quickly, Joe, thank you for everything you do. And talk radio, I think, is going to be so instrumental in being able to bring our country back. And God bless you and all your listeners.
Thank you very much. It certainly has changed the political landscape, and we look forward to having you back, Sheriff. Have a great one. Thank you again.
You too.
All right, folks, that'll wrap up Political Thursday. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock for the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You've been listening to Political Thursday on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN.